Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about one of the key pieces that keeps the Hydra affiliation running smoothly, as well as a plethora of their tactic cards for the affiliation. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, I won't lie, I have been slacking on my prep this week because another Marvel game with a big release happening today has been on my mind, and hopefully those who also play Champions understand the hype around this wave because we are finally getting some mutant love in the game, but that might be a video for another day. Until such a time arrives, I will continue to support Hydra and their hype, which is kind of the role of the character I'm going to be talking about today. Arnim Zola has the alter ego of Arnim Zola. He has 6 stamina, moves short, but is at least on a 50mm base. He is also size 3 for 3 threat. His defenses are like cell reception bars with 2 physical defense, 3 energy, and 4 mystic. His first attack is prototype weapons. It has a range and strength of 4 for no cost, but it can be any attack type, mystic, energy, or even physical. The attack will net Zola 1 guaranteed power, and then each wild in the attack will trigger Hydra Ingenuity, which will be able to dole out one of 4 status conditions: bleed, shock, slow, or stun. So some of the nastier options with shock and stun, and then slow on the right target can be even better than those. His spender is Focused ESP Box Blast. This one does have to be energy with a range of 3 and strength of 6 for 2 power, but if the attack deals damage, you can advance the target character short. And if you get a wild, the target also gains the slow condition. So not only is this spender control on any size target, if you deal damage and get the wild, you basically stagger someone who doesn't have any extra mobility options. We then have a nice suite of superpowers that are also not so nice at the same time. His active experimental enhancements cost 3 power and allows him to add 2 attack dice to his next attack roll, but if the attack has any skulls in it, Zola takes a point of damage. So some good there and some bad, but with the downside it offers, I really would have liked to see this only cost 2 power, similar to Iron Man's Friday AI. Mostly so that we have more power available for his next ability. Hydra Engineering is a reactive ability that has a cost of X. You can use it when this character or an allied character within range 4 is attacking or defending during the modified dice step. Zola can then spend up to 3 power, and for each power spent, you may reroll one of your defense or attack dice. Additionally, if your roll has any failure results, the character who is making the roll will gain the bleed status condition, which can actually be a good thing. The reason being because if you're using Strucker's leadership, both of these triggers resolve after the attack is resolved, so you can give yourself the bleed only to then pass it on to the target, assuming you were able to punch some damage through. Downside aside though, this is like Shuri's upgrades rerolls, but Zola can also use them on himself, giving him some really nice consistency if you need it from him. Then finally we have Scientific Hubris, which allows Arnim to gain a power after rolling dice if one of those results was a crit, which works both for his own attack and defense rolls, as well as in a situation when you would have to roll for an objective. Unfortunately, you can't give someone else a reroll with Hydra Engineering and get power back if you roll into a crit because Zola isn't the one who is considered to be rolling the dice, he's just helping with the rerolls. Then finally, Zola is immune to bleed and poise status conditions, and there are no changes on the injured side of his card. So Zola is pretty much the Shuri of Hydra. He is able to give out rerolls, can play into the game plan of giving out meaningful status conditions from afar, but if he really needs to lay out some damage, an 8-die spender that can result in a short advance is also a possibility. Mostly though, I think Zola will likely stay towards the back while handing out rerolls and throwing out some long-range attacks for chip damage and status conditions. As far as pros and cons go, it's pretty straightforward for him. The pros is he is a long-range support attacker that can choose any attack type that throws out several meaningful status conditions, while also supplying rerolls out to range 4. And when played in affiliation, those rerolls can even result in some healing. The cons are, well, he is really slow, as most all short speed characters are without any extra mobility help, and to a degree, his durability. I would be lying if I said 2 physical defense isn't a glaring weak spot for Zola, but 6 and 6 for his stamina pools help mitigate it a bit. But there's another reason I'm not too concerned about this for Zola. He is primarily a support piece who you're going to play affiliated. If your opponent is focusing down him over a target like Baron Zemo or Strucker, or even one of your important splash pieces like Crimson Dynamo or X-23, well, I'm pretty happy that they are targeting Zola. Additionally, while he isn't really starved for power since he has some reliable tools to get it, he could always use more, and so him getting beat up just means that he has that many more resources to spend later. Now, that is Zola. Let's move on to the plethora of Hydra tactic cards. I will quickly say that I'm not going to cover all 9 of them in depth, but will at least touch on all of them, but I'm going to go a bit deeper with the ones that I think should see reliable play. And since we have been talking about Zola, I feel like I need to talk about his tactic card first. Scientific Method, it is a Hydra-affiliated active card that requires Zola to spend 2 power. He then chooses another allied character within range 3 that is 3 or less threat. They then take 2 damage, but gain a new attack and superpower. The attack is a mystic one, which is neat, but the real benefit of the new attack is that any skulls your opponent rolls translate into undefendable damage. Then the superpower, Unnatural Mutation, acts like what Mysterio, Enchantress, and Ebony Maw have, where when you're getting attacked, you get 2 extra defensive dice, unless the attacker spends 2 extra power. While there are a lot of possibilities who to play this on, there are 2 standouts to me, X-23 and Baron Strucker, and if you're feeling crazy, maybe even Deadpool. X-23 because she then becomes pretty durable, and her healing factor 2 will immediately clear up that damage. However, I think the better call is going to often be Baron Strucker. In addition to making your leader harder to kill, which is always important, he also makes the best out of the new attack, ESP Leakage. If you combine its ability to deal damage from failure results in the defense roll with Strucker's Arrogance, which counts failure results as successes for the attacker, as well as the defender, it just means more value because your opponent's skulls counting as a block doesn't really help them because they still damage them anyways. It also doesn't hurt that he can start healing off of the damage with his leadership and his own healing factor. The next card I want to touch on is the High Council. It is also Hydra affiliated and active, and it requires 4 different characters to fulfill 4 different conditions. But if you meet all of those requirements, which aren't that crazy to meet, you get to place a 4-threat character from your roster onto the table that doesn't have an activation token yet. This effect is probably one of the most powerful effects that a tactic card can offer, so thankfully it does have a lot of conditions, not to mention it forces you to bring 4 different team members. But all of those team members are really good affiliated characters anyway, so under the right circumstances, this is a card that suddenly your opponent has to play around to avoid you getting to play it at all. Because even in a 17-threat game, getting to suddenly have 21 threat to your opponent's 17 is a gigantic swing. The next 3 I'm going to talk about are all Red Skull focused. Victory Assured gives either version of Red Skull a strong beam attack that can be buffed by spending his own health. So as nice as it is to probably on average get an 8 or 9 dime beam attack is, leaving Red on lower health doesn't seem worth it for a one-time attack. Granted, maybe on a Gamma situation, but as someone who isn't bringing Gamma with their own list, I don't think it makes the 10. Occult Research is an insane card that costs 10 whopping power, and it will stagger your own Red Skull as well as anybody else within range 2, but Red Skull now gets 3 actions in a turn. So realistically, the earliest you are playing this is round 3, which means starting in round 4, Red Skull actually gets to make full use of those 3 actions in an activation. The downside here is that means that Red Skull is probably not interacting with objectives and not spending power to buff his attacks for those first 2 rounds. So maybe this is worth bringing if you have a low-scoring objective set like a single extract and a secure like Demons Downtown, where you'll probably go a full 6 rounds, but otherwise I think this can stay on the bench. Endless Legions makes your Hydra troopers immortal for a round, but your opponent gets to push them around, which can kind of make them equally useless. So super cool on theme, but not one that makes my 10. We then have Two More Shall Rise and World Domination. Both cards that are really cool and I would actually play if their wording didn't make them so restrictive. Two More Shall Rise lets you pick 2 new Cabal or Hydra leadership abilities of characters on the table to become active if your current leader dies, but the downside here is that it has to be 2, not up to 2. So you can't just be playing Red Skull and Baron Strucker, and if one of the leader 1 dies, you pass on the baton. You have to have 2 viable leaders that meet the qualification, which becomes a little bit trickier to do reasonably when building your squad. Then World Domination is just harder to pull off than it first seems. You can play it if you control, keyword there, all of the secure objectives. So that means this can only be played on objectives that you can control. So things like Mutant Madman, Deadly Meteors, Sword Base, and so on. You can't even play this card on something like Infinity Formula or Extremis consoles because you can't control them. Then for every 2 secure objectives that you are securing, you can score 1 victory point and all of your characters get 1 power for every 2. So, in order to fulfill the second part of this card, you have to have characters standing on those secure objectives that you are controlling, which is distinctly different from securing in the rules terms. This is probably getting you 1 VP and 1 power on all of your characters most of the time, which is still really good, especially if you were at 15 points. But since it can only be played on a specific secure that, at least for me in my Hydra list, I'm not even bringing, this is kind of a dead card unless you really try to build around it. Sleeper Agent is a fun thematic card similar to Shield's Initiative and the Sentinels Under Your Skin, but like those cards, I don't think this is one necessarily worth burning a tactic card slot on. However, the last card I have to talk about is Inevitable Betrayal is a Hydra-affiliated reactive card in addition to being a fantastic Firefly meme. It can be played during the cleanup phase right before victory points are scored. An allied Hydra character has to spend 8 to play it, but you can then choose an enemy character within range 2 that is contesting a secure objective. The chosen character counts as one of your characters for contesting secure objectives this round. So yes, this one, like World Domination, requires a specific objective type, but this objective type is the more common one. Additionally, this card doesn't just give you victory points, but also takes away victory points from your opponent, resulting in a bigger swing than you might first think. But it can be an even bigger deal on an objective like Mayor Fisk's Witnesses and Terrigen Mists, where the secure points are worth 2 victory points, not to mention something like Gamma. So out of all of these cards, the 3 I'm currently rocking are High Council, Zola's Scientific Method, and Inevitable Betrayal. The rest are all fun and dripping with theme, but they aren't best fit for at least my style of Hydra that focuses on Strucker instead of Skull. Now, at the end of the video, I want to give the usual shout out to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games and War Room Hobbies, which are both local gaming stores that host game nights, events, and the like, as well as offering MCP miniatures at a bit of a discount. If you shop from them, use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout when shopping with Tritex to save an extra 5% off, and you can use the code MCP2022 and it'll get you an extra 10% off of whatever's in your order from War Room Hobbies. So if you want to get your hands on our new robot overlords, or just finish your World War II lineup and are shopping online anyways, consider using these stores and discounts to help out in LGS. However, if you're already shopping from your own LGS, keep doing that. Thumbs up, that's awesome. Support them, we understand, and encourage it actually. But if you are still wanting a way to support the guild's videos or podcast, check out our Patreon page. It isn't anything too crazy, but it gives you access to the guild Discord page, as well as helps us continue to work on new projects. And it's only $1 a month or $12 over the course of a year. So thank you to all the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting what we do here. In the next week or so, I am still testing out the streaming stuff. It's been difficult to get people over for it, but it is something that is on its way. And before I forget, we do have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. As always, if you have enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and other MCP goodness. As well, you can also find the Gamer Guild podcast that has Merzane, Sooner, Shadow Marvel, and sometimes Kenny on several different podcast apps and platforms. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.